Anastasia, Chapter 15, Attentiveness to Man. I asked Anastasia, who taught her to speak and converse, since she had almost no memory of her father and mother. Her grandfather and great-grandfather talked with her rarely. The answers she gave were still quite a shock to me, and required interpretation by specialists, and so I'll try to reproduce them as fully as I can. Their meaning has gradually begun to sink in. She responded to my first question with a question of her own. Do you mean the ability to speak in different people's languages? How do you mean different? What, you can speak more than one language? Yes, she replied. Including German, French, English, Japanese, Chinese? Yes, she repeated, and then added, You can see I speak your language. You mean Russian? Well, that puts it too generally. I speak, or at least try to speak, using the words and phrases you yourself use when you talk. At first it was a little challenging for me, since your vocabulary is not very large and you repeat yourself a fair amount. Nor do you have much expression of feeling. That is not the kind of language which easily lends itself to articulately saying everything one wishes to say. Wait, Anastasia, I'm going to ask you something in a foreign language. Can you give me an answer? I said hello to her in English and then in French. She answered me right off. Unfortunately, I myself have not mastered any foreign language. In school, I studied German, but with rather poor marks. I did remember one whole sentence in German, which my schoolmates and I wrote. I recited it to Anastasia. Not saying that. She extended her hand to me and answered in German, I give you my hand. Amazed at what I had heard, and still not believing my ears, I asked, So then any person can be taught all languages? I had an intuitive feeling that there must be some kind of explanation for this extraordinary phenomenon, and I had to ask Anastasia what it was so that I could tell others about it. Anastasia, so have a go at it. Explain this in my language. And try to do it with examples so that I can understand, I asked somewhat excitedly. All right, only calm down and let go, or you will not understand. But first, let me teach you to write in Russian. I know how to write. You tell me about learning foreign languages. I do not mean just handwriting. I shall teach you to be a writer, a very talented writer. You shall write a book. That's impossible. It is possible. It is quite simple. Anastasia took a stick and outlined on the ground the whole Russian alphabet song with the punctuation marks and asked me how many letters were there. 33, I replied. You see, that is a very small number of letters. Can you call what I have outlined a book? No, I answered. It's just an ordinary alphabet, that's all. Ordinary letters. Yet all the books in the Russian language are made up of these ordinary letters, Anastasia observed. Do you not agree? Do you not see how simple it all is? Yes, but in the books they're arranged differently. Correct. All books consist of a multitude of combinations of these letters. People arrange them on the pages automatically, guided by their feelings. And from this it follows that books originate not from the combination of letters and sounds, but from feelings outlined in people's imaginations. The result is that the readers are aroused by approximately the same feelings as the writers, and such feelings can be recalled for a long time. Can you recollect any images or situations from books you have read? Yes, I can, I replied after a moment's thought. And for some reason I recalled Lermontov's Hero of Our Times, and began to tell the story to Anastasia. She interrupted me. You see, you can still depict the characters from this book and tell me what they felt, even though quite a bit of time has gone by since you read it. But if I were to ask you to tell me what sequence the 33 letters of the Russian alphabet were set forth in that book, what combinations were they arranged in? Could you do that? No, that would be impossible. Indeed, it would be very difficult. So feelings have been conveyed from one man to another with the help of all sort of combinations of these 33 letters. You looked at the combinations and forgot them right off, but the feelings and images remained to be remembered for a long time. So it turns out that if you think emotional feelings directly to these marks on paper without thinking about any conventions, one's soul would cause these marks to appear in just the right sequence and combination so that any reader may subsequently feel the soul of the writer. And if the soul of the writer... Wait, Anastasia, put it more simply, more clearly, more specifically. Show me through some kind of an example how languages are to be learned. You can make me into a writer later on. Come on, tell me first, who taught you to understand the different languages and how? My great-grandfather, replied Anastasia. Give me an example, I kept insisting, anxious to understand everything in a hurry. All right, but do not be concerned. I shall find a way to help you understand. And if it is that important to you, I shall try teaching all the languages to you too. It is simple after all. For us it's quite incredible, Anastasia. So do try to explain and tell me, how much time would it take to teach me? She thought for a moment, looked at me, and then said, Your memory is no longer very good. And then there are your domestic problems. You will need a lot of time. How long? I was impatient for the answer. For everyday comprehension of phrases such as hello and goodbye, I would say it would take at least 4 months, possibly 6, she replied. Enough, Anastasia. Tell me how your great-grandfather did it. He played with me. How did he play? Tell me. Calm down. Take it easy. I cannot understand why you are so impatient. And then she quietly went on. Great-grandfather played with me as though he were joking with me. Whenever he came to me all by himself without grandfather, he would always approach me, bow at the waist, hold out his hand to me, and then I would hold out mine to him. He would first shake my hand and get down on one knee, kiss my hand, and say, Hello, Anastasia. One time he came and he did everything the same as usual. His eyes looked at me tenderly as usual, but his lips were saying some kind of abracadabra. I looked at him in surprise, and he said something else quite unintelligible. I could not take it any longer and asked, Grandpakins, how can you have forgotten what to say? Yes, I have, great-grandfather answered, and then he stepped away from me a few paces, stopped to think about something, and came back over to me, extended his hand to me, and I held out mine. He dropped on one knee and kissed my hand. His look was gentle, his lips were moving, but no sound was coming out at all. I was even a bit afraid, and then I decided a reminder might help. Hello, Anastasia, I hinted. Correct, grandfather confirmed with a smile. At that point, I realized it was a game, and I would often play this game, and he and I would often play this game together after that. At first, it was quite simple, but then the game became more complicated. and more fascinating. It is a game that begins when one is 3 years old and goes until the age of 11, when one undergoes a kind of test. This involves looking attentively at the person you are speaking with and being able to understand what they are saying, no matter what language they are expressing it in. This kind of dialogue is far superior to speech. It is more rapid and conveys far more information. You would call it thought transfer. You think it is abnormal, something out of fantasy, but it is simply an attentive attitude towards man, drawing upon a developed imagination and a good memory. It involves not just a more efficient method of information exchange, but getting to know a person's soul, along with the whole animal and plant world, and it constitutes creation as a whole. Anastasia, I said, what can plants growing in a garden plot possibly have to do with this? What is their role in all of this? What do you mean, what do they have to do with it? At the same time as the child is getting to know the world of plants as a part of the functioning of the universe, he is also entering into contact with the planets and their help and the help of his parents. He very quickly gets to know the truth and develops intensely in the fields of psychology, philosophy, and the natural sciences, your disciplines. But if the game is played using some kind of man-made object from the artificial world, as an example, the child will become lost. He will not receive any assistance from the powers of nature or the universe. I have already noted, Anastasia, that in the final analysis, such a child could become an agronomist. Now, where would his knowledge come from in the other areas? But Anastasia maintained that a man raised in such a manner would show an aptitude for quick learning in any of our scholarly disciplines.